Hi, Smitha, and welcome to the Coaching Collective Online and to the podcast for the Coaching Collective Online called The Listening Room. I'm so glad to have you.
So glad to be here, Pam. I've been looking forward to this. You know, we've been chatting about this for some time, and I'm just excited that we're here now. So thank you for having me.
Okay, so I am so excited to start with these wonderful questions that I have for you to be able to have a platform and to share with everybody out there watching. What was the moment you knew you had to create this podcast?
Yeah, of course. So, you know, it's called Unglamorous in the City. I do have my little card here with my branding. And so, you know, a little bit about me. I live here in New York City, specifically in Manhattan, and I've been in the city for 15 years. I actually moved here without a job, which is as crazy as it sounds, Pam. You know, I was working in TV news. I knew that I wanted to try something a little bit different. And so, as you know, as it is obviously today, but 15 years ago, it was the same way where it was really hard to get a job if you weren't living in that city. And so I took, you know, a leap of faith. I moved here. I'm from upstate New York, so I moved here. I always knew New York City was, you know, the game plan at some point. So I came here and just, I mean, the last 15 years, right? How do you sum up 15 years in a couple of sentences? It's really pretty tough. But I will say I have been through so many unglamorous moments, just like anyone who has lived here or any city, right? Anywhere really in the world. I've just been through so much, right? When it comes to career, dating, everything, right? Working in an industry, you know, working in this industry, being on camera, being on TV, navigating friendships, you know, relationships, everything. So I think for me, this concept of doing a podcast had always been in the back of my mind, especially the last couple of years, because it does feel like everybody has a podcast. And I think there is space for all of us, which I absolutely love. But for me, I really wanted to do something that showcased a little bit about, you know, your journey. You don't have to be, you know, in this cookie cutter, you know, kind of frame, married, kids, you know, rich, living in a certain place. That's not like, that's a beautiful life and that works for people, but you can also have a beautiful life without those things, right? I travel. I love to travel. I've gone 35,000 miles this year alone. And it's, which is pretty crazy. But I will say Australia and New Zealand helped me get to that number because obviously going back there and traveling between the two places definitely helped up those miles. But, you know, I do love to travel. I have a great support system with family and friends. I have a great career that I have built, obviously, here in New York. I live, you know, in the city, and it's such a wonderful life, and it may not look the same as someone else's, but I knew for me, the podcast was really important to start, and I'm going live. I mean, you know, I'm not sure when this will air, but I'm going live in June, and so I've been building and recording episodes and just getting everything ready, which I will say, and you know this, doing a podcast is a lot of work, and I know we're getting to that. I think there's a question on there for later, but doing a podcast is a lot of work, but it is so much fun. This is a passion project for me, and again, just to go back to your question, it's something that I just wanted to do because I really felt that I can help people. And if I help one person, then this is totally worth it because we all go through these unglamorous moments in life. And I think hearing and seeing from somebody who has gone through it, from obviously the guests that I'll have, including you on my show, I just think it's something so beautiful. If we have a platform and we're able to do something like this, I think we have to go for it.
Yeah, me too. A place to share stories and a place where people can find some information that they can relate to and know that their life may not be so abnormal after all. So yeah, that's great.
Exactly. And you know, when you think about like abnormal, right? That's also, and you see we've always been trained, especially as women, to have a certain, you know, perception of what a successful life looks like. And I think that for me, getting at the heart of that and really showing people, it doesn't matter what you see on Instagram, what you see on social media isn't always reality. And just because, you know, I think for me, one of the times that always stands out is Christmas time, right? Because you see the cards, you see like the pictures on social media, people that have, you know, photos with families and kids and all the things, maybe extended families. And not everyone has that. And I think that's something to keep in mind when you're, you know, I'm empathetic and I think about other people. It's like, exactly. It's perception and reality can be two very different things.
Yeah. And we start comparing ourselves, right, to other people and their family makeup. And maybe if it's different, we think we're lacking. And really, it's just different. That's all. We all just have different lives and different experiences, equally important. And that's nice. Thank you for sharing that. that.
Of course. No. And exactly. It's different, right? It's not one is better than the other. They're just different. And you have to embrace, you can control what you can control. There are things sometimes you cannot control. And it's embracing both, right? What you can and cannot control.
That's true. So true. Yeah. And what you do with yourself in those moments that are unexpected, how you conduct yourself in those moments and how you interpret them can make all the difference on your outlook. I agree. So what keeps you going then on those hard days, and what reminds you why this matters?
Yeah, great questions. I think, for me, it's just a support system. I know we just recorded my podcast and we talked about this, but it's true. It's a support system, right? What keeps me going on the tough days is this amazing support system that I've built. And it's not easy, right? Because it's, of course, it's family, it's friends. Again, it can be coworkers, whatever that looks like. But for me, the support system is really important. And then the other thing I think of too is that I've always tried to stay positive, right? It's the positivity that really does help you get through the hard moments, because I heard this many years ago where it's really happiness comes from focusing on what you do have and not what you don't have, right? And I think that's a very positive thinking attitude where you really have to think about, okay, these are the great things that I have in my life. Maybe these are the things I don't have, but a lot of this stuff is achievable, right? Let's say you want a better job, for instance. That is achievable, right? You have to believe in yourself, but you also have to stay positive. And I think what happens a lot of times when people are going through a really tough experience, and I've been there, I've been unemployed, for instance, here in New York City, which is arguably one of the most expensive cities in the world, where it's stressful and there's so many, things that are behind that, but you have to stay positive and you have to keep going and you just have to be resilient. And I think when you do those things and that all comes together with your support system, I think you can get through anything, and we've all been there. Again, we've all been, through these unglamorous moments, of course, like I talk about in my podcast, but you can get through all of that stuff if you just really stay the course, you stay positive, and then you surround yourself with people who care about you, who are that support system.
You are extremely positive. I love that about you. And you just have a great outlook on life, and just so grateful that you're doing this podcast and to be able to see you and see these other women that you're going to have on your show sharing their experiences. It'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I live in New York and I travel so much, like I said, so I'm just excited to talk to people from all walks of life. That's always how I've been. Even when I was young, I've always wanted friends from all over the world, right? From all over the world, from different backgrounds, races, socioeconomic stat. I've just always wanted that and embraced that. And I think for me, doing this podcast, and again, it's a passion project, but it's being able to talk to these, just talk to people from all walks of life, because everyone has a story, right? I think that's so fundamental to remember. Every single person out there has a story. And then it's just, what you're comfortable sharing as part of that story. But thank you for the kind words and the support. Again, going back to the support system, you're in that network of supporters for me, because I appreciate it, the fact that you're even having me on your podcast to talk about mine, right? Right there, that to me is just such a beautiful thing. And that's the support that, that I try to give and I receive too. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so the show is about real, unfiltered life. How much of your own unglamorous story do you share, and how did you get comfortable doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think for me, I definitely want to, number one, I'm empathetic to other people, right? So anyone who's obviously watching this, listening to this right now, I'm not going to share personal experiences as it relates to certain people, right? I don't think that is something I'm comfortable doing, but I can talk about things, at a high level. For instance, being single in my 40s, I'm 43. I have no problem. I've always been a relatively open book. And that is one thing I'm happy to share. I'm 43. I'm single. And that in itself is a lot, right? So I can tell you at a high level, dating can be challenging at any age, of course, as we all know as women. But certainly at this point in life, there's new challenges, because now we've all been through things in our life, right? We have things that we bring into a relationship, whether or not we want to admit it. We all bring things into a relationship because at this point, we've had experiences. Some are similar experiences. Some are very different experiences. Whether you have children, I don't have children, for instance, but whether you have children, you don't have children. I think for me at a high level, I do want to be authentic to what I've experienced, because I do think that is what's going to help people. And again, without sharing too much or without oversharing, and being respectful of people that maybe have been involved in my life or been a part of these experiences, but just talking about the feelings, right? The hurt, comfort that still comes from these experiences, how you feel when you're, again, going through unemployment or when you're dating again after a period of time. I mean, these are things that so many people out there can relate to, things that we're all navigating. And I think just knowing you're not alone, especially we all have our days, right? Every day is not going to be rainbow and sunshine. There are days when you're sitting at home, where I'm sitting at home. I've just been on a big trip and I'm so glad that I'm back home. I'm so glad to be in the comfort of my own space, but maybe there's a little wave of sadness, right? Or loneliness that creeps in and maybe I see something or I hear something, right? Like that's so normal. And I think sometimes people don't talk about that. So it's like, oh, I'm watching your stories. I'm seeing you traveling. I'm seeing you doing all these things with your work and with your friends and your family. And I'm not actually taking a step back to think about some of the unglamorous moments or some of these things that, that people are experiencing, because that's not what we put forward, right? If we started to put that forward on social media, it just wouldn't exist, because people want to see the happy moments. And, some people, of course, share some of the raw moments too. And we've seen a little bit more of that maybe in recent years, but people want to see the happy moments and they want to see the things, that you're doing and where you are and who you're with. And, living in New York, of course, I post a lot of stories of me going out and exploring the city. And it's just, for me, that's so, I'm so happy I can share what I do and the experiences I have, because I know I have a lot of people who care about me, who want to see that stuff, who genuinely care about my happiness and my well-being. And those are the people that I'm doing all of this for. I'm not doing, I know you and I talked about, this when we were having the chat about the podcast. I'm not doing this for the people that maybe the trolls. Let's talk about the trolls a little bit, right? They exist. And I've worked in TV again for 20 years. So I started at a time where social media just wasn't a big thing. But now that it has become, there is a voice for everyone. And I think that is a wonderful thing. But I also think some people misuse that voice. And that's where trolling comes in. And I've been, I've definitely been the recipient of trolling. All my friends in TV have been, unfortunately, at some point, particularly the women. And it's always about appearance, right? It's about weight. It's about maybe your lipstick color or your hair. It can get honestly racist too, right? I've seen, comments about friends that are very racist in nature, quite frankly. So it can get really mean. But for me at this point, none of that phases me anymore. It really doesn't, because I know who I am. I know the self-worth I have. I know what a wonderful person I am. I know that I have a lot of people who support me. So let's say I have, 200 people who support me and I have one person that wants to comment on something. It doesn't faze me anymore, but it does take work to get to that point, right? That is not something you wake up one day and you say, I'm not going to let this comment bother me, because it's human nature, right? To care what others think. We all, some of us, I know being a people pleaser when I was younger, right? That still plays into effect even at this point, but just knowing, being confident and going through this journey, going to therapy, which helps, and surrounding yourself again with that network and just knowing this is who I am and this is the value I bring. And I don't mean that in a cocky way, or I mean that in a very confident and self-aware way. And I think that to me is just something that I really want to convey. If there's one thing that people can get, from this conversation, it's don't let anyone else define who you are. You define who you are, right? If someone tells you you're fat, okay, I'm fat, right? But it's because I want to say it, not because somebody else is defining me by that term. And I think that is so, so important in today's society. And particularly for younger women who, have not gotten to that point yet. They've not gotten to that, they're still developing, they're still learning and growing. And that is so important for people to hear over and over again.
Yeah, you just went right into my next question, which was, what do you want someone to get from watching one of your episodes? And I think you just answered that very eloquently. I mean, that's just so true. You are such a shining example of being a positive voice and showing leadership in this space. So I think I just commend you. I'm glad that you're out there. I'm glad you're out there for women of all ages. And like you said, especially younger women that are still probably living a lot of their life in comparison. I don't have the same eyes. I don't have the same lips. I don't have the same nose, the body shape. I'm too tall, I'm too short. And I think if you're always in that, if you're comparing, you're never going to feel good enough if it's always comparison to somebody else. And that's not what your life and your purpose. You weren't born here to compare yourself to other people. And that would just never end, right? You have to start to really know your self-worth and build your self-esteem, knowing how beautiful you are on the inside and outside, and live with integrity and treat people with kindness and move forward with confidence and strength, and try to, be able to dismiss those troll comments or any negative feedback you're receiving from anybody or even yourself, to get over that. And really, I think that's great. Thanks, Smitha.
Of course. Yeah. And the kindness, right? I want to go back to that word because it's so simple in so many ways, right? Just be kind and treat others as you would want to be treated. Treat others as you'd want people to treat your mother, your father, your sibling, a close friend, your best friend, someone who you really care about. You wouldn't want someone to be unkind to that person, right? And so I never have understood when people try to break other people down because it's just not the way I've ever lived my life. And even when I worked in TV, which is a very competitive industry, again, there's space for all of us. And yeah, maybe there are some times where, of course, there's one job and there is competition, of course, but you don't need to put someone down, right? You just go there, you show your value, you show up, you show your value, you present yourself, and that's all you can do. And yes, there are times where it's going to work out. There are times when it's not, but you don't need to bring someone else down in the process, or you don't need to tear someone else apart in that process. And that to me is just something that I've always, lived my life with, that kind of just that guidance. And a lot of it comes from, that's always been instilled in me and something that I've always grown up with. It's so important. And sometimes people lose sight of that, or maybe going through something or a really emotional situation, or, some kind of bickering or argument, or, personal circumstance or personal, feud. And just try to be kind at all times, as hard as that could be, just try to be kind.
I myself am thinking of the last career that I had. And one of the biggest reasons that I had to leave was because I kept seeing people around me stepping on other people to get higher. So it's just something I just feel like it's a toxic work environment and a toxic environment to be around anybody who feels they need to step on others to level up. So yeah, be kind and good things will happen to you. They really will,
I agree with that 100%. Be kind to you. Good things will happen. You do get back what you put out. And I will share this past birthday. My birthday was in April, and, I had a big birthday brunch, and I just had so many people that showed up and were so kind, and everyone was so, just happy to come together, to meet new people, maybe to see people they knew. I had my college friends, from Syracuse, where I went to school. I had friends that I've met, a couple of weeks ago here in New York. And I think that was kind of a very telling moment, because it's like, I try to portray that energy. And I try to, again, I am kind, and I try to bring people together and bring kind people together. And to me, that was just a demonstration of a time where people all came together, and we're really embracing each other. We're really, saying, this is great. This is someone new that maybe now I can keep in touch with as a friend, as a potential work contact, right? And that to me is just one of the most beautiful things in life, when people are kind and come together through a common, maybe a common friend in this case, or whatever that commonality is. It's just such a wonderful thing to see. And there's no reason that we can't be doing that all the time, right? And just bringing good energy and good people together.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. The big 43. Yes. It was a lot of fun. And it's always nice to celebrate birthdays. I know, I'm a big birthday person, so it's always fun to celebrate birthdays and just, recognize somebody on that big day, and every, passing year is a blessing. So keeping that in mind as well, and just really, pushing forward.
I find it interesting how some people enjoy their birthdays. I myself I throw my own birthday party, but some people really don't. They're like just so unhappy. So it's an interesting topic.
It is. Sure. Yeah, it is. Some people don't want to make a big deal of it, right? Some people don't want to celebrate, or it seems like so self-serving, and it is self-serving. That's the whole point, right? Because we all have a birthday, so we're all going to get to that point, and it is 100% self-serving, but that's the point of it. And you should, and that goes back to self-worth and self-love, right? You should celebrate your birthday. You should celebrate these happy moments in life because you deserve it. And, and that to me, like, yeah, people that are, I get it, shy, maybe don't want the attention, totally understandable. You don't need to have a big birthday brunch with 30 people, right? You don't need to do that, but you can still celebrate yourself, whether that just looks like you going out with your partner, with a parent, with a sibling, with a friend, whatever that looks like, right? You should celebrate yourself in some way on your birthday. And I'm a pretty big believer in that.
I agree. What would you tell someone who is sitting on an idea that they're afraid to start?
I would say life is short. Go for it. Go for it, right? And I'll give you an example, even with my podcast, right? Putting yourself out there is not easy. People are going to have opinions, and that's totally fine. Everyone is welcome to have an opinion. And that's, part of the journey that you see when you do put yourself out there. So I would say if you're sitting on something, and I see this a lot with just, people in my network, it is hard for change. It is hard for people to do anything different or go outside of the normal routine. It is just not something that is an easy thing to do, but I would say go for it, because I think I would rather regret the things that I've done versus regret the things that I haven't done. And I've talked to a lot of people, I live in New York, so I've talked to a lot lot of people who are successful, and they'll tell you the same thing. They'll say that, it's better to fail. And, failure is it's almost a dirty word. It's something we're scared of, but it is okay to fail, because when you fail, as long as you learn the lessons, you get what you need to get from that experience, it was worth it, right? And then you do something else, and hopefully that doesn't fail. And if it does, you know what? You keep going for it. It's not easy. And I understand. It depends on, of course, a lot of circumstances. Money is, of course, a factor, and I understand that. But if you can take the risk and you can go for something, I say go for it. And for me, that's why this is a passion project I'm doing to try to help people, and I'm just going for it. And I know there's going to be, whatever that looks like, whatever, people will have opinions and may say things, maybe unkind things. I hope they don't, but that's all the reality. But if I didn't go for this because I was worried about that, because I was worried about the way I look, right? The way I look on camera adds weight. We all know this, right? If I was worried about those things and I didn't push forward, I would regret that for the rest of my life. And I want to show people it doesn't matter. I was actually on social media earlier today, and there's this woman that puts, and I can't remember her handle off the top of my head, but she basically puts comments that trolls make about celebrities. And so Ashley Graham was the person, and Ashley Graham, I think, is one of the most beautiful women. And, of course she gets trolled. And then, but what this woman does that I think is genius is she puts a picture of the person who's trolling, right? And it's just like, why would you do that? Why would you do that, right? And whoever it is, Nicole Kidman on the other extreme, there are comments that she's too thin. She needs to eat a cheese. I think there was actually a lot of comments about a cheeseburger as it relates to Nicole Kidman. And so it's just so funny, because it's like, why are people, it's not funny, it's actually sad, but why are people investing that energy? Because you're not taking away from Nicole Kidman or Ashley Graham. They're still out there living their best lives. So you're not doing anything. And honestly, if these women, and I don't know them personally, but I have to imagine they've gotten to a point where they're okay with themselves. They love themselves, and they obviously have put themselves out there. They know this is part of the territory, I would imagine. But what are you trying to do by those comments? Are you trying to bring these women down? Because you're not going to. You're not going to bring women down who are self-confident and know their own self-worth. That's not what you're going to do. You're just going to look like a jerk. And that's exactly the point of this page. And it's really sad when you start to look at these people and the consistent negative comments that are out there. And again, as women, why? And some of it are from other women. Why are you tearing down other women? Like, that's just, to me, is so sad.
I agree. And I've tried to put myself in their shoes, and I just start to feel icky inside, because I can't fathom being in that place and that mindset and feeling such emotions that I'm spending my time even mentioning it to the public. I mean, it's mean. It's cruel. It's mean. I don't understand it. And I hope I never completely understand their perspective. I mean, it's disgusting, really. I mean, but like you said, they're always going to be out there. And, but those type of people most likely are not going to change. They're not the ones who want to support the people they're trying to tear down. For some reason, there's such a threat there, right? For them to bicker back. So something must make them feel threatened. I mean, don't you think? I mean, why else would they say these things? They're obviously not feeling good. So, I mean, what is that triggering that they need to even put that out there? I mean, I just feel that those people will never. They don't want to see a lot of women succeed, and I get caught up on. I think people will get caught up on the word jealousy. So I don't really want to say that, because I think there's a lot of underneath. What does that mean, really? Right? That means that they don't have the capacity, maybe poor social skills, maybe they're not empathetic, maybe they had a hard life, maybe they feel awful, and so then they're presenting them some awful. They most certainly don't feel good. So yeah, I just think those people can't let other people feel small. I mean, you can't let them stop you from moving forward and doing what you want and being out there in the spotlight. You'll find your supporters. The people will be there to support you and uplift you, and you'll keep growing. And that's the beautiful part of it, right? Making new friends.
Exactly. That's the beautiful part of it. And I will say, like, as you're saying all of that, it just makes me feel sad for those people too, right? The ones that are choosing, like I've heard something from a former boss, right? Hurt people hurt. So these are hurt people who are then trying to hurt, which is exactly what you just said. And that just makes me sad, because if you're in a place like that, you need to create, for example, an account, a fake burner account, to post hateful comments about someone, or you're putting yourself out there like, so many of these people do. It makes me feel sad, because life is so beautiful, and life is not meant to tear other people apart. Life is meant to be lived, and do the best that you can do with whatever your circumstances are. And I'm not saying everyone has perfect circumstances, because most of us don't. Most of us were not born as, Paris Hilton, or, born in a certain way. But you just make the best of what you have, and you go from there, and you just try to treat others with respect, and you just try to live the best life that you can while you're here. And I believe that. So it makes me feel sad for those people, because to your point, there's obviously something missing in their lives. They are just, there's no reason to tear. There's never excuse. There's never a good excuse to tear other people down, though. I will say that there is never a good excuse for that. And hopefully, the people that are hurting, that are doing that, learn and grow and stop doing that, because we just need kindness out there. We need more kindness in the world. There are a lot of great people out there, and we just need that in this life. There's already enough going on in life, just in general, right? We just need kindness.
I agree. We have one life, and one life to create and do good. And I am grateful for having you on the Coaching Collective Online today, and tell everybody where they can find you and watch all of your episodes.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah. So I'm going to be online wherever you can find your podcasts. I have a platform for that. And then on social media, just Unglamorous in the City. I've already gotten the handle. So just Unglamorous in the City. You can find me there. And Pam, I just want to thank you again, what we've talked about. Such a beautiful conversation. Again, women supporting other women. I really do appreciate your friendship and the opportunity to come on to your podcast. How exciting is this? I've enjoyed this conversation. I know we could keep chatting, but thank you for having me on the show, and take care. And thanks to everyone who was listening. And I hope everyone takes care and be.
Thank you, Smitha. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Until next time.